Okay, you ready? August 2007 through October 2008, Republicans are for cap and trade.
Joe Lieberman and I, my favorite Democrat, and I have proposed legislation which is called cap and trade.
So this cap and trade, that there will be incentives for people to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It's a free market approach.
He's got a good cap and trade policy that he supports.
For cap and trade, okay? Now, same Republicans, same policy, a couple of years later, 2010.
I have to address a little bit of the cap and tax, is what I call it, not cap and trade, and the devastation, as was already suggested, that it would have on our country if it were to pass.
Moron.
I will not and cannot align myself with a giant government slush fund.
Even worse than the financial hits that our country and we as individuals would take with cap and tax, it would so disincentivize work ethic and industry and production because we are so reliant on our energy sources.
It's cap and tax. It's cap and tax.
Hypocrites.
It's cap and tax. It's cap. So Republicans came up with the cap and trade idea. They were all for cap and trade. It was their Republican proposal. And now they're not only against it, it's the end of the world. All right, September 2008. Republicans are in favor of bailing out the banks, to the point of John Boehner weeping about it on the floor of the House.
So I ask all of you, both sides of the aisle, what's in the best interest of our country? Not what's in the best interest of our party, not what's in the best interest of our own re-election. What's in the best interest of our country? Vote yes.
Vote yes. Vote yes to bail out the banks. Okay, now, same Republican, same policy a year or two later, in 2009 and in 2010.
I'm going to ask my colleagues, if you've had enough of the bailouts, if you've had enough of TARP, let's do the right thing for the American people. They're already saying enough is enough. Let's end TARP. Let's pay down the deficit. Let's cut spending back to 2008 levels, back before the bailouts and the stimulus and all the nonsense.
Flip-flop.
All that nonsense that I wept and begged you to vote for. So Republicans came up with the bailout idea. They were all for the bailout idea. And now they're not only against it, it's the end of the world. June 2009, Republicans are in favor of an individual mandate for health insurance.
When it comes to states requiring it for automobile insurance, the principle then ought to lie the same way for health insurance, because everybody has some health insurance costs, and if you aren't insured, there's no free lunch. I believe that there is a bipartisan consensus to have individual mandates.
Yay, individual mandates. Okay, now, same Republican, same policy in 2010.
I personally think, and I think constitutional lawyers think, that the mandate in itself is unconstitutional, because never before in the 225-year history of our country has the federal government said you had to buy anything.
Buffoon.
So Republicans came up with the individual mandate idea. They were all for the individual mandate idea. And now they're not only against it, it's the end of the world. Okay, just one more. Check this out.
Women shouldn't be held hostage by virtue of where they live. All we're saying in this legislation is that if health insurance plans provide coverage for prescription drugs, that coverage has to extend to FDA-approved prescription contraceptives. It's that simple.
That was the day before 9/11. That was September 10th, 2001. Republican Senator Olympia Snowe pushing, along with 5 of her Republican colleagues in the Senate, along with 15 Republicans in the House, the Republican idea that contraception must be covered by health insurance plans. Like cap and trade, like the bank bailout, like the individual mandate for health reform, like all of these things, it is a Republican idea. But now they are not only against that Republican idea, it's the end of the world.
The Obama administration has crossed a dangerous line.
Mr. President, Ms. Sebelius, you have overstepped the boundaries. You have violated our constitutional rights, and we will fight.
In imposing this requirement, the federal government has drifted dangerously beyond its constitutional boundaries.
Mr. President, Ms. Sebelius, you've crossed the line.
This is a particular gift of the modern Republican Party. This is why the word conservative is kind of a misnomer. The word conservative generally means you don't want things to change, right? You want to conserve things the way they are. You want to stand athwart history shouting, "Stop, conservative," right? But in the modern Republican Party, change is an art form. They're not only happy to turn against their own ideas, and quickly, they are happy to denounce anybody who espouses what used to be their own ideas as essentially the Antichrist, for having even allowed that previously Republican idea to cross their mind. Today, a group of students from universities affiliated with the Catholic Church held an event at the National Press Club. They did it essentially to let the cat out of the bag, to let the cat out of the bag on the actual position instead of the political position of institutions like Catholic hospitals and universities. Remember, the purported outrage here is that any Catholic university would ever provide health insurance that covered prescription birth control. That's supposedly the outrage.
I have 4 daughters, 2 of whom attended Catholic universities. And I want to say clearly that Catholic women of this generation know that they need contraceptive coverage. 98% of Catholic women use contraceptives. 98%. 28 states already require that large institutions, Catholic institutions, cover contraceptive. 28 states.
77% of Catholic law schools already provide contraception coverage to their students.
Right. Cat's out of the bag. Tons of Catholic universities already provide for health insurance that covers contraception, including a big majority of Catholic law schools. They are already doing this thing that they are supposedly so outraged by. If a Catholic university covering contraception in its health insurance plan was going to cause the end of the world, the way Republicans are saying, since it's already happening, we can conclude that the end of the world is not so bad. At least after the world ends, we still have cable news. In these 28 states, there is already state law that requires employers, including in many cases employers associated with religious institutions, to provide health insurance that covers contraception. That is already the law of the land in these 28 states. There is a reason you have not been deafened by the cries of outrage over that policy in these 28 states. It's because nobody in the Republican Party decided that that sort of thing would be an outrage until now, until they could somehow try to use it against President Obama, even though they never cared about it before. Actually, in 8 of those 28 states that require health insurance to cover contraception, in these 8 states, there's not even an exemption for churches. That's true of all these godless places you see here, like Georgia and Iowa and Montana. So in fact, the Obama administration's proposed new rule on health insurance, which says religious institutions like churches do not have to provide health insurance that covers contraception, those new rules from the Obama administration would actually give churches a new exemption from that law that they've never had before. In 8 states, the Obama administration rule would carve out more space for churches to evade the rules that everybody else has to operate by on the basis of their religious beliefs. More space for the proverbial Amish bus driver rule to get invoked, right? Where you can hire a guy to be a bus driver, and then once he's got the job, bus driver, he can cite the fact that he's Amish as the reason he's not going to drive the bus. I personally, along with many other people across this country, along with 8 states across the country, think it is bizarre that there should be religious belief exemptions from having to follow laws like this. But the Obama administration is willing to go there. Their rules will exempt churches, which 8 states right now don't even do. Their rules are a compromise measure designed to be super sensitive to religious institutions. Their rules are precisely what was proposed by Olympia Snowe and other Republicans in 2001, but yet they are being denounced as some sort of liberal abomination. It is in fact such a liberal abomination that anybody who disagrees with Republicans' position on this today, according to the folks at Fox News, should never have been born at all.
And to get us started, I thought we would also start with a panelist who couldn't be with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from Rachel Maddow.
You guys want to make this only about religion, but listen, Mitt Romney is campaigning. Mitt Romney is campaigning saying that he would like to end. He would like to end all family planning support at the federal level. He would like to eliminate federal Title X. Rick Santorum says that he would like states to be able to make contraception illegal. You can try to make this an issue of, oh, Democrats hate religion. But the fact is, churches were exempt from this from the beginning. This is about providing health insurance. And the Republican Party is waging war on contraception at this point.
Well, I'm really glad, Genevieve, that you played the Rachel Maddow clip, because I think that she is the best argument in favor of her parents using contraception. I would be all for that. And all the rest of the crowd at MSNBC, too, for that matter.
That happened at CPAC today, at the Conservative Political Action Conference today. Mr. Fox News person speaking there, I'm sorry that you feel that way about me, that you wish I had never been born. Personally, I'm glad that you were born. Otherwise, how would Republicans get the special Fox News bat signal that it's time to be outraged now about what used to be Republicans' own policy idea? Joining us now is Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, Democrat of Illinois. Representative Schakowsky, thanks very much for joining us. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you, and I'm awfully glad you were born, Rachel.
Thank you. I sort of feel like that should become a generic greeting in America now.
Yes.
Nice to see you. I'm glad you were born.
That's right.
In any case, since this issue has blown up so hugely in the media, are you hearing from your constituents on this issue? What are you hearing from people?
You know, Rachel, it is so astonishing to me that in 2012, we're actually having to defend the right of women to have contraception when virtually 100% of women who are sexually active in their lifetime use contraception. The case is closed. The deal is done. All women expect to have access to contraception. And the great thing about what the Obama administration said, that no matter where they work, they should be able to get this with no copay, because contraception can be expensive. And, you know, I think so for women, this is just not an issue, except for a few women who want to go along with a narrow band of bishops who actually have said, Anthony Piccarello has said, no employer should have to provide contraception. He says if he leaves being a director of the bishops, that he would, and he wants to open a Taco Bell, that he shouldn't have to be able to have to provide insurance coverage for contraception because he's a good Catholic. Imagine.
Why was this not controversial when Republicans proposed it federally a decade ago, or when 28 states put it into law? It's law in 28 states across the country, and yet we have not heard a peep about it. Do you think this is a manufactured controversy?
Absolutely, I do, because I think that we have seen that these churches, that these hospitals, now let's remember too, we're talking about hospitals, we're talking about universities that operate in the public space. They get public dollars, they get special tax breaks because they're not-for-profit institutions, and they hire people, and we're talking about janitors and secretaries and nurses and students and teachers, and they've been doing this for a long time in more than half of the country. And now all of a sudden, this has become an assault on religious freedom in our country. It's incredible to me. In this 21st century, we're having this debate.
But why do you think that we are? Because one of the things that I think is interesting here is the timing. This had been out and known for weeks before anybody problematized it, before anybody started crowing about it. Obviously, the Catholic Church decided to make an issue. They had their clergy read it to people at Sunday Mass. We saw Newt Gingrich pick it up on the campaign trail thereafter, which treated the country to the spectacle of Newt Gingrich lecturing the country on good Catholic behavior, particularly with regard to sex. But we didn't see an immediate response to this. It was definitely, there was a decision made to make it a political issue. Do you think they have calculated that this will succeed as a political issue, that this will harm the administration?
Well, first of all, I think they have made a wrong political calculation that most of the pundits that we hear, most of the spokespeople in favor of this are men who are saying that we should change the rules. But I think they also may have waited until after the jobs numbers came out, the unemployment numbers came out, the economy seems to be doing better. And so let's go back to the culture wars. We think that works. But I think this is a serious miscalculation. Don't they even read the polls? I thought they're a lot poll-driven when the majority of Americans, including Catholics, men and women that were polled, say that the majority think that all employers, including Catholic hospitals and universities, ought to provide health care coverage that includes contraception. I don't know what they're thinking when they make this calculation. I think they're really off base. And, you know, the women in Congress, the Democratic women in Congress, have been absolutely fierce about it, and I really appreciate that. You know, and calling on women, as they did with the Susan G. Komen protest, to now protest this effort, which I think is even more serious, to take away their right to birth control.
Democratic Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky of Illinois, thank you for being with us tonight on this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.